Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Jetro Chicago's Jconnect webinar series. My name is Kevin Cowell, Business Development Specialist from Jetro Chicago. I'll be moderating the webinar today. Our topic for today is supply chain automation, featuring three Midwestern companies: Fulcrum from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Algo AI from Detroit, Michigan, and Pacsafe from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Pacsafe, excuse me. We would like to welcome you if this is your first time attending a Jconnect webinar. Our focus is to help connect innovative North American startups to Japanese affiliated companies doing business here in North America, and most importantly, to facilitate business relationships between the two. Likewise, it aims to improve the productivity of Japanese companies and to help accelerate their open innovation strategies. I'd also like to remind you again to check out the landing page for the Jconnect webinar series on the Jetro USA web page. You can find dates and information on upcoming industry topics, as well as recordings of our previous webinars. Today's webinar recording should be available on the site within 2 to 3 business days. So again, please check out Jetro USA's website for more info. I'd like to go through some housekeeping now, really quickly. Sorry, for those who have joined previous webinars, you'll see that we have switched back from Zoom to GoToWebinar. To operate the control panel for questions, you should see that on the right of your screen. Questions should be entered in the box labeled question in the control panel on the far right. If you don't see the panel, click on the orange arrow to show the panel. All of the questions will be answered after the 3 presentations have concluded. Today's talk will also be recorded, so the video, like I said, will be made available within a few days. In addition, you will be asked to complete a survey questionnaire after the webinar. In the unlikely event that the webinar system shuts down for any reason, we will reboot the system for you. So please log in a few minutes after that, using the Join Webinar button again. So we're going to go right into it today. We're going to be finished at 2:15 Central Time. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first company and first speaker from Fulcrum, based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Fulcrum Manufacturing Cloud provides forward-thinking manufacturers a next-generation ERP with instant, accurate, automatic data connectivity to power an efficient and bright manufacturing future. Fulcrum delivers value through a fully digital, paperless workflow, leveraging machine learning, automation, predictive analytics, and advanced heuristics to drive throughput and profitability. Fulcrum recently participated as one of the top 100 startups of 2020 in the 8th annual Startup of the Year Summit. I'd like to introduce Sunny Han. He's the CEO and founder of Fulcrum and is dedicated to delivering a connected future where frictionless manufacturing, production, and supply chains lead to faster and better product innovations. So I'm going to let Sunny take it from here, and here we go.
My name is Sunny. I'm the founder and CEO of Fulcrum. At Fulcrum, we're building what we call a networked operating system for manufacturing. From the beginning of enterprise software technology, the software industry has been very much intertwined with manufacturing. In 1989, over a third of the entire software industry globally was for manufacturing resource planning and production software. And unfortunately, since then, there's been very little to no movement forward on the underlying technologies that serve as the foundation for how manufacturing happens. We envision a future where the increased complexity of the things that we build can be harnessed and controlled in a way that helps to create more efficiencies for the entire global supply chain. Next slide. A lot of the products that are built contain more and more components to deliver better and better functionality and innovations to the market at large. These changes have benefited us as a human civilization, but the underlying work that goes into coordinating the efforts to make these types of things happen has long become strained. Recently with COVID, we can certainly tell that computer graphics cards and consumer goods to cars and train components, different products across all sorts of different industries have all suffered from the fact that our supply chains are fundamentally longer than we want, slower than we want, and less nimble than we want. Next slide, please. What we want to create is we want to create a network that connects all of the mid-market, large and small manufacturers around the world to understand their capabilities, capacities, current backlogs, where they are geographically, and what sorts of expertise and quality they're able to deliver. We imagine a future where instead of manually looking for people, meeting them at trade shows, we have a network that we can query and say that if we need another 200 components or another 2,000 or 2 million, who can fulfill that? And how do I make sure that a diversified, stable, decentralized system of production can still deliver really high quality, repeatable results? Next slide. What we see in the marketplace looks very much like a network that should exist. It's one where important nodes pop up in different places. And as we continue to head towards a future where innovation gets faster, where materials usage changes faster, we want the companies that are designing the new products for the future to have the ability and the power to utilize the capacities and capabilities of other smaller manufacturers. We want that because we don't want large product companies to have to resort to buying the capabilities themselves. The capital expenditure that it costs makes it much tougher for us to change a tooling process or change a particular manufacturing process, enabling a much quicker and more universal usage of the entire supply chain will make it easier and faster to deliver more and better things in the future. Next slide. The things that we find to be the biggest bottlenecks and constraints in delivering this future is actually data. It's systems that are really unintuitive, that are hard to use, that big companies might have teams of advanced degree holding employees that help them manage their businesses, but smaller companies can't afford that type of implementation or that type of software. It's that the primary user interface is still paper. It's still something that can't be analyzed, can't be seen. And the business models that exist still penalize people for having more users, submitting more data. And all of the cool stuff that we do, the statistical machine learning, the heuristics, the algorithms that we have, none of them have any power unless we have more, better, and more real-time data. Next slide. So we engineered our entire company from the ground up to be fundamentally different. Our software is sold with unlimited users in mind. We implement the software ourselves. We do so in a reductive implementation instead of an additive implementation. We build every single feature anyone could possibly want really, really, really well, and we turn the ones off that some people might not need. Traditional implementations take a sandbox and build each individual company something unique, but something that's very much lower budget and very much harder to maintain. Our software has an open API. We play very nicely with everybody in the sandbox with us, and it's cloud first, and that allows us to continuously deliver new technological advancements without having to wait for an upgrade cycle or whatever it might be. Next slide, please. We also focus specifically on the manufacturing operations. We look at all of the things that happen from rubber extrusion to aluminum extrusion to CNC machining to injection molding and blow molding, every single possible way to add energy to material to make it more useful. We look at the workflows, not the industries, to make the best possibly designed interfaces and product that we could offer for the market. Next slide, please. From job tracking and turning things that are fundamentally paper into digital input, What we allow our customers to do is to get live feedback for the actions that they're doing. Instead of putting information on a piece of paper and waiting for it to be entered, we can give the end user who's doing the work and the managers who are allocating the data a instantaneous feedback of what's going on the shop floor. Next slide. It allows for job tracking and job costing to be aligned. And instead of reporting happening as a post-fact analytics exercise, in process, in situation, within the flow of manufacturing, we can start to detect and analyze what's going on. Next slide. Because of this, we can start to automatically understand where within a bill of materials different operations might slip or slide, where there might be room for more improvement, and where we can connect with vendors to buy things or make things and take this complicated web that ends up being an entire large bill of materials and break it down into the individual operations and companies that do them. Next slide, please. It allows us then to take real life information and process multiple different types of philosophies and methodologies to deliver correct production planning, correct purchasing planning, and correct future forecasting. Next slide, please. All of this is only made possible by the fact that our entire distribution is different. We've aligned our incentives with our customers so that we can focus our product development on what they need, not what they'll pay for by the hour. We want to be the primary partner that delivers an experience where our customers never have to worry about shopping around for software, because they can understand and believe that we will deliver them the best technology that's available always. Next slide. It means that the delivery of software becomes something where we're looking at the maximization of value for the customer instead of the exhaustion of budget. And that lets us deliver faster ROI, more return on investment, and it changes the capital outlay structure that makes adoption much, much simpler. Next slide. All of this delivers real measurable impact because our customers are planning better, because they don't have 4 schedulers in 4 different facilities, each running their own spreadsheets, trying to figure out when to run things. They're able to do more revenue with the exact same capital structure. They're able to reduce non-conformance. They're able to increase throughput. They're able to make more things with the same amount of machines and time. Next slide. Fundamentally, our primary mission is to provide the foundation that will allow for way cooler things than we can even imagine to happen, to create a network that works together instead of apart from each other, and connects everything globally in a way that minimizes the amount of distribution and transportation that needs to happen to produce everything as close to the end use of the product as possible. And a lot of this isn't just something that has to happen here in the United States or in North America, but it has to happen throughout an entirely complex and globally connected supply chain. Thank you.
Sunny, thank you. Excellent presentation. We're going to switch over to Algo AI here. They are based in Detroit, developing technology to humanize how companies transform information into opportunities, breathing new life into society's understanding of supply and demand, and giving retailers, distributors, and manufacturers a chance to achieve more for their organizations. Algo ranks number 28 in the Inc. 5000 fastest growing private companies in 2020. So I'll introduce John Daly. He's Senior Vice President of Strategic Development for Algo. He's actually out there in Los Angeles. Before joining Algo, John served as Senior Vice President of Supply Chain for Sony Pictures Entertainment, overseeing all manufacturing, distribution, and retail operations for theatrical and television home entertainment. As the EVP of North American operations for Sony, he managed all manufacturing and distribution sites for CD, DVD, and Blu-ray products for the major music and entertainment companies. In addition, he has held various executive and financial positions for Cinram, Time Warner, SPS Technologies, and Coopers & Lybrand. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you now, John.
Good, thanks, and welcome everybody, and good morning, good evening, good night. Happy to be here. It's an exciting time to be in supply chain, obviously, right? Even pre-COVID issues, there was a lot going on, and my interest in data, analytics, and all that really came out with my most recent association running global supply chain for Sony Pictures. So as someone who has had a finance background and manufacturing distribution and all that, I'm very interested in learning how do we use data today in supply chains to really improve the supply chains. And that's what we do at Algo today, right? We're looking at all sorts of data coming in and trying to identify what is it telling us? What can it do to improve financial performance? What can it do to provide improvements to the supply chain? What can it do to improve the right product being on the right shelf at the right stores? So we're a company today that's based in Detroit. We've got offices in Los Angeles and Europe as well. And we're very excited to be in this field right now, and we'll talk about it. We're really trying to humanize data. We are that organization that's helping people who run supply chains access to data. So certainly there's data scientists, data engineers, and all that out there, but we're trying to get the right information into the right hands of the people who make decisions on what to make, where to ship it, how much to make, when to build it, how much to replenish, and all of that. So our solutions look at all those potential opportunities that come out of sales, sales planning, operations, forecasting, and we really speak the language of supply chain. We're a unique organization in the sense that we both have the technical side of our organization, which is the engineers and the developers, as well as people such as myself who actually run supply chain operations. So a very interesting and unique opportunity for us. You can jump to the next slide. Yep, we're creating value by placing that right product in the right place at the right time. And as you guys all know throughout the world today, lost sales is in the billions of dollars. Excess inventory being made and shipped to the wrong location is in billions of dollars. Spoilage at grocery on food, markdowns, returns are all driving billions and billions of financial value that can be recouped. And this is where you've got to get with an organization to go in and start looking at that data and understanding where those opportunities are. So we believe in this very wholeheartedly. If you can think about the right product at the right location and the right time, it's very important. And to do that, you have to get down to very granular data. As an example, in stores, we look at thousands of stores per retailers, thousands of SKUs per retailers, thousands of locations and shelf spaces in those retailers to really find where are sales being missed, where is excess inventory being put in place. And this delivers a very, very profitable bottom line for you once you can start going after those opportunities. But you need the data to do it, and you need the data to do it in a way that is actionable, not just on dashboards. Next slide, please. So we're solving sales and operations, planning and business challenges from inputs. We use rules of workflow and process automation. We're definitely an AI shop, machine learning shop, and then the outputs that we're going after. What we've seen in the industry and many of our clients have today is they may have the data, but they may not be able to pull it all together. Or they're pulling it together, but not a timely fashion. Or there's so much data coming in together that they can't see the opportunities of what actions should be taken, right? What stores perhaps should receive more products? What stores should receive less products? Are there imminent out of stocks coming up? Are there opportunities in store behaviors, in clustering, that says different stores and different retailers should be supported in different ways? And the answer to all that is yes. And when you get down to the data, you can see that, and that's what we do a really nice job of. Next slide, please. So we absolutely are a full supply chain organization. For our clients today, we're doing everything from accurate forecasting, optimizing inventory levels, maximizing sales, minimizing out of stocks, all the way through. We're managing vendor managed inventory for many of our customers today, scan-based trading models that help ensure only what is made is what's needed to be sold, and there's no lost sales again, and no excess inventory. So we definitely are focused as an organization about great to have data, great to have dashboards, great to have insights, but we're here to help make sure that results in real performance to the bottom line, right? And we look at what we call a balanced scorecard when we look at supply chains. We're looking at inventory levels, weeks of supply, on hands, in stocks, returns, gross margins, sell-throughs. And because the data allows us to do that, we can do it across multiple categories. We can do it in multiple retailers and categories, multiple SKUs within retailers and categories, right down to the SKU level. And that's where I get excited when you start drilling down and finding those opportunities, which are very unique and different at all across the globe. That's where the value really starts being provided. Next slide, please. So we're really a human and machine collaboration. We feel very strongly that the data, along with supply chain entrepreneurs and supply chain professionals, is really what makes the difference. We're all about functional expertise. We have knowledge in certainly the engineering pieces, but as well as running supply chains, VMI, as well as deep machine learning. And we use natural language processing, which means when you look at our bots, and we're happy to always do demos of these, you're going in and asking very simple questions into your computer. That's almost like having a workplace assistant with you, right? Hey, what were my sales in these particular stores? You're not running reports. You're interfacing directly in a natural language way where the tool is learning over time. What do you usually ask for? What are those reports you want? Where are my out of stocks? Where are my opportunities for lost sales? So it's really all of that pulled together in a very intelligent workflow and process automation. We've made it easy for people running demand planning, inventory planning, retail management, replenishment, planograms, to come in and use the data so that they can make a difference in their daily jobs, right? Rather than spending a lot of their time fighting through spreadsheets and trying to find out where in stocks are good or out of stocks are bad, or where opportunities are for stores, we're freeing them up to get those actionable insights into their hands so they can cut orders, cut back on shipments, maybe alter the number of days that are being made, alter the items that are there. If there's limit on financial budgets that retailers have, and there's only so many amount of dollars of goods that could be shipped into stores, we're also putting scenario planning in place that says, hey, if you can only ship in another $1 million worth of inventory, what should it be, which SKUs, and what stores should it go into as well? Next slide, please. So we're really an enterprise AI adoption solution, right? We go from, this continuum, if you think about it, where people are being reactive to speculative to now very much collaborative and proactive. And that's the journey we're going to take data on, right? Once we get data, we'll move it along and we'll drive it to a very proactive, a collaborative, proactive stance so that you're making those impacts on your key performance indicators. And we're very big on that, right? What is it that the organization has as a business question? What KPIs surround that? Is it financial? Is it in stock? Is it weeks of supply? Is it inventory value of information? Is it sell-through to retailers? And we look at all of those and go in and really work very hard to go after all of that. So we're big about providing insights. We're big about providing what-if simulations. What if I ship more? What if I ship less? What if I ship to some stores and others? What we've seen is, across the retail organization, constant change. So although you may understand the retail market today, say as an example, Walmart stores in the US, they don't all act the same way. And over time they change. And you have to be proactive in thinking about what's occurring and what's happening in those stores. Did competition move in down the street such that we may sell less? Or did competition go away where we can sell more? Weather patterns, all those things make a big difference, and certainly COVID. So our solution progresses very much to this proactive level that puts your supply chain team in power of making decisions to reap the best benefits for your organization, for consumers, for retailers as well. Next slide, please. So we're all about using advanced analytics, which is really interesting. We do everything from production planning, space planning, assortment planning, obviously CPFR, and sales and promotion planning. We're sitting this all on top of managing inventory and watching all this happens. The most exciting piece for me certainly is on the top level, the advanced analytics, where we're doing things like anomaly detection, right? Let the data show us where problems may be existing and tell us about issues before we even think to ask the questions. Hey, I have an inventory item that's been selling great, but all of a sudden in these 500 stores in these 3 countries in the last 2 weeks, the sales have dropped off. Let's get in and drill in and go after that. That power is really positive to get you to the bottom line and start looking at root cause of what's going on. So we're doing anomaly detection at a very, very fast rate, which is providing tremendous benefit for our customers. Also providing any sorts of simulations we can, and then clustering of stores and clustering of categories, right? That's a really important part of who Algo is today. We're about granular definition of the data to find the areas of opportunity. Next slide, please. So today we're absolutely across the entire supply chain, as I mentioned earlier, from suppliers all the way to retailers. That includes us doing work for purchasing of raw materials, building finished goods, all the way to items being manufactured, sent to distribution, shipped from distribution centers to retail, interfacing with merchandising companies that move product from the back of retail stores onto shelves, right directly to the retailers themselves. We're doing all sorts of work there with regard to long-range planning, execution of orders, optimization, and again, all very much driven on this function of a balanced scorecard that's all about accuracy of forecast, KPI management, anomaly detection, and then more importantly, give the users insights that are actionable. Next slide, please. So today, Algo really has some sweet spots that we're in: hard goods manufacturing, wholesaling, distribution, retail and mass merchants. We tend to do extremely well with those organizations that have thousands of SKUs, high counts and turnovers, omni-channel supply chains, high store and SKU combinations as well. Again, when you've got so much data, it's hard to go in and really understand that manually through spreadsheets or whatnot. Algo, with our natural language software, allows us to get in and go after that. Next slide, if you will, please. So we serve today everybody from executives of organizations, senior supply chain executives, retail space planners, demand planning, business analysts, store planners. We're in all these different CPG categories, as you can see today, which is pretty significant, and active in all those with customers today. Next slide. And just as a little bit more background for Algo, as we try to expand our global reach, these are some of the major partners we work with today: Target and Walmart, Best Buy, Microsoft. We're under a global launch right now to use our advanced analytics to help support all Microsoft computing and accessories being put into major retailers. We just launched in the last week in parts of Asia and the United States, and over the next year we'll be in 27 of their major market retailers globally. In addition, we're partnering with Microsoft to start offering our software solutions early next year on the Microsoft cloud platform. So we've got a great relationship there. We've also done a tremendous amount of work in Europe with Tesco, and you can see some of the other categories that we're involved with today. Part of our start came out of the home entertainment industry, which is where I was, and saw this significant need for data to be used. So I think one more slide, and I think I can probably call that my 15 minutes or so. Yeah, and I think this was mentioned earlier on. We're definitely receiving a lot of accolades today from Inc. 5000 and Gartner in terms of where we are and what we're doing. We're absolutely in a space that is making a difference, that's very tangible and bottom line driven. So I think that's my time. Hopefully that's a very good understanding for everybody of what we do, the excitement of our organization, how we're making supply chains impactful, and how we're using data to really go after driving performance. Thanks.
Okay, John, thank you. Thank you so much for stepping in here. Our next presenter is Ilya Preston of Pacsafe. Pacsafe contextualizes supply chain data to de-risk B2B shipments and enable dynamic cargo insurance. By using machine learning to properly classify and label adverse events, Pacsafe's context intelligence platform is better able to predict and prescribe against supply chain excursions. Pacsafe is a graduate of the nationally ranked accelerator Generator, was a top 6 finalist in the 2019 Accelerate Michigan Startup Competition, is a top 20 Wisconsin startup to watch in 2020, and was recently a finalist in the 2020 Accord InsurTech Innovation Challenge. Ilya Preston is the co-founder and CEO of Pacsafe. Ilya was formerly a strategy and operations management consultant with the Big Four, within the Big Four with both PwC and KPMG, advising Fortune 1000 clients across healthcare, technology, and private equity verticals. Prior to his time in consulting, Ilya was a supply chain strategy manager at Cummins, where he oversaw 100 million in spending and was responsible for building out the commodity strategy for sheet metal fabrication and raw metal purchases. So Ilya, I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to you.
All right. Great to be here with everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Ilya Preston. I am the co-founder and CEO of Pacsafe, where we build an AI-enabled IoT platform that classifies and contextualizes supply chain data to de-risk B2B shipping and enable dynamic cargo insurance. So I'm one of the 2 co-founders in this company, and the reason why we started the company is very much so because I had to live through a lot of my own pain points. So I was a former supply chain strategy manager at Cummins. I saw a lot of the supply chain related visibility issues when I was a consultant at both KPMG and PwC. And so that prompted us to get together with my co-founder Ashok and launch the company. So the issue of this lack of visibility has really evolved over the last 5 years. If you look 5 years ago, supply chain visibility or lack thereof essentially meant you have no data coming from the supply chain. Today, it's fundamentally the opposite. You have an overabundance of data coming from the supply chain and you don't know what to do with it. And the reason why you don't know what to do with it is because it lacks context and it's not actionable. There's a lack of product level quality granular data that is digestible and that is actionable to the end user. And as a result, because people don't have this data, there's a lot of direct losses that occur in the supply chain in the form of theft, counterfeit, product damage, product loss, etc. But more importantly, there's also a lot of operational inefficiencies that result from not having this data. For example, not being able to enforce contract terms or SLAs with your supply chain partners because you don't know what happened in the supply chain. Not being able to optimize for things like inventory or buffer stock or warehouse labor because you don't know exactly how much of what product is coming when and in what condition. Those are all very real issues. Effectively, there's a lot of visibility technology that's available today in the supply chain. And you have this in the form of your asset tracking solutions, you have this in the form of RFID technology, you have GPS chipsets, temperature data loggers, and then you have even more recent technology, your visibility platforms. But at the end of the day, despite this $18 billion worth of solutions that are available, year after year, this lack of real-time visibility in the supply chain comes back as a top 3 supply chain executive pain point. And the reason for that is very simple. There is no set data standard. You effectively have a bunch of smoke detectors in the field. So these solutions can tell you when there's a problem, when there's something wrong, but that stops there. They can't diagnose the problem. They can't diagnose the root cause. They can't explain how something is happening or why something is happening. And if you can't get that level of context, you cannot properly predict when, where, and under which conditions are these types of issues going to keep occurring again and again in the future. And if you don't have that accurate prediction, it's impossible for you to prescribe to the shippers and enable shippers to effectively put the necessary controls in place to prevent these issues from happening again and again in the supply chain. So effectively, if you can't answer the very simple backward-looking questions, like, how did something happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen? Who had custody of that product when that particular issue occurred? It's virtually impossible to answer the much more strategic, forward-looking questions, like how do I price this risk moving forward, and how do I prevent this from happening again and again and again? So what our platform does is it essentially provides a digital twin to the physical supply chain that's capable of answering who, what, when, where, how, and why with regards to any given shipment, with the emphasis there on the how and the why. The hardware component of our platform is essentially the vehicle that collects the data. The mobile app is what drives the workflow and really enforces the compliance to the process. And then a big part of really the meat and potatoes of our solution is in our context intelligence platform. So that intelligence platform is broken out into two subsegments. We've got a machine learning driven classification system that properly classifies and labels this adverse event data. That feeds a contextualization platform that properly contextualizes what is actually happening in the field. And the output of that contextualization feeds into the prediction engine, which can then help identify when and where and under which conditions are these types of issues likely to happen again in the future. At the surface, this platform enables three things to happen. Number one is intervention. So intervening with any at-risk shipments real time. Our digital footprint acts more or less as a central source of truth, right? So we're not just capturing where something is or what the temperature is. We can tell you who packaged it specifically, what time it was packaged, how long it stayed at the origin, what time the box was closed, any sort of route deviation, any sort of package unauthorized open, temperature excursions, any damage that's occurring real time. That's all communicated real time so that all of the stakeholders in the value chain have the ability to intervene and to take the necessary actions real time. Number two is automation of root cause analysis. So instead of trying to figure out after the fact what went wrong, was it a tier 2 supplier issue? Was it a tier 1 supplier issue? Did it happen in transit with the logistics carrier or the 3PL? This we can import directly into the insurance claims workflow. We can import it directly into the warranty workflow, and effectively we can help resolve and automate a big part of that root cause analysis and claims adjustment process. And then number three, perhaps most importantly, but also most underserved, is the prediction aspect of this. So we're not just looking at our real-time sensor data. We effectively have three data sources. One is the real-time sensor data. We also collect third-party data like traffic and weather and fleet and flight and marine data, as well as enterprise data from ERP and TMS systems. And we run all of this through our algorithms to come up with an adaptive risk score. So effectively, this risk score enables companies to optimize their supply chain variables to measure it to the actual supply chain risk that particular journey is about to take. What enables all of this to happen is really our context intelligence platform. So we're not just focused on telling you where something is or when something happened. That part is very much commoditized, and there are a lot of players in the field that can do that. We focus on automating the root cause, understanding the how and the why at a very granular level. And we do this a couple of different ways. So starting with something we call our machine learning classification system that properly labels these adverse events. So for example, if you're shipping an MRI machine or something that's sensitive to shock, and you need to know if it was carefully shipped or if there were any sort of shock excursions, it's not enough to just know that your product experienced shock at the end of the day. If you're the shipper or the receiver of the product and you get You attach a shock sensor and you receive that product. You don't know what caused that shock. You don't know how strong that shock was. So you can't put the necessary controls in place to prevent it from happening again in the future. We can tell you if that shock is the result of a drop, if it's the result of a product actually tilting over because the truck swerved or it hit a pothole, if a forklift picks it up too forcefully or drops it down on the ground too forcefully. That's the level of granularity that you need to put the necessary controls in place to mitigate those types of issues from happening over and over. And we do this across the board, not just with shock, of course, but with a broad array of sensors. The second part is actually tying together the individual sensor values into a cohesive intelligence platform and having that diagnose and tell you what is actually happening in the supply chain. So instead of notifying you, for example, that there's been a temperature excursion in the supply chain, if you're the supply chain manager and you get that notification, that alone doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't tell you what's causing it. We look for other variables. We look for the rate of increase or the rate of decrease of that temperature excursion. Then we look out to other sensor values corresponding to that. For example, light sensor. We look at the strength of that light sensor value to see if it's the result of a product being in the sun, the result of a product being exposed to an open refrigerator or an open box. So we can help identify and automate that root cause so that supply chain manager doesn't have to spend countless hours diagnosing and working with the supplier quality engineering team, working with operations managers to try and diagnose what is actually happening. We tie those individual sensor values together to contextualize the data. And then the third piece is we actually have a fairly unique feature in our platform as well. It's an intermodal predictive routing and dynamic ETA feature. So this is really pretty important, where we can, without the use of our hardware, this is purely SaaS, we can actually tell you the specific route that a particular shipment is going to take, where it's going to make the stops, so which distribution centers or regional centers it's going to stop at, how long it's going to take at each of those locations, and provide a live dynamic ETA to the end customer. This is, of course, much more complex than just tying in Google Maps and trying to figure out, you know, what time are my products going to get there. This incorporates a lot of external data into this as well. But the benefit here to the customer, of course, is it's a much different conversation from a customer service and customer care perspective, going to your customers proactively and telling them that a product is going to be late or is not coming, than having to hear from them reactively and having them come tell you that the product did not arrive. So it's, in the short term, this is effectively a customer care and reduction in customer care overhead tool. But in the longer term, it's really about route optimization and carrier performance selection. So we're currently working, we're a relatively new startup. We're about 2 years old, but we launched our paid version of our platform about 6 months ago. And we're working with companies in a couple of different verticals, including perishables. Perishables meaning anything that's sensitive to temperature or humidity. We're working with companies across clinical trials, food manufacturing, and flowers. We're working with companies that work in the valuable space. So jewelry, medical devices, military, especially manufacturing and automotive, where these products are not only susceptible to damage, they're not only generally on the more valuable side, but they're also, a lot of these products have extremely long lead times. So if you're shipping obviously into the US and you're in the manufacturing of the automotive space, a lot of parts are shipped from Asia, from Europe and Asia. And a lot of those lead times are, 12, 16, 18 weeks. So if something happens to your product in week 9, but you don't know about it until week 13, that's a big issue. And that's why we treat that as a valuable, or consider that a valuable as well. And then the third application is specific to oil and gas. And the value proposition is pretty simple. So we work in this ecosystem between the shippers, the logistics carriers, and the insurance providers. And everybody gets some value out of this relationship. So from the shipper side, shippers have inbound and outbound supply chains. But from an inbound side, which is typically their raw materials, it helps streamline a lot of that inflow of material. So they get accurate estimated time of arrivals. They're able to enforce their SLAs and contract terms with their supply chain partners because they actually have context as to what's going on. And then they can optimize things like inventory and warehouse labor because they know exactly when the product is going to arrive. On the outbound side, of course, the shippers benefit from a customer service perspective. They can drastically improve their own on-time delivery rates, as well as improve the general nature of that customer relationship by proactively reaching out to their customer base. The carriers win from this because they see their own improvement in on-time delivery rates. They lean on our platform in order to drive their on-time delivery to the customer. So they can provide our live ETA directly to the customer. They see as a result a reduction in their own dwell, detention, and rebooking fees. And then of course, a reduction in a lot of the operational overhead. So for example, the number of calls they get per day from eager shippers trying to figure out where the product is and when it's gonna land on the dock. And then, oh, sorry about that. Kevin, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then the insurers win something out of this as well, right? So first and foremost, they can use our data to reduce their own claims payouts. They can actually import our data directly into the insurance claims workflow to automate a big part of their work. And then the third is they can actually use our data to help structure their risk underwriting. So they can improve their loss ratios by creating pricing strategies on the underwriting side that are more commensurate to actual supply chain risk as opposed to historical assumptions. So I will say, just a quick example of a use case. We're working with a top 10 3PL. They service a lot of the, industrial, energy and automotive markets. We've been live with them for about 3 months. And they do a lot of shipping in and around Europe, Asia, and North America. So the majority of their shipments are fully intermodal, meaning they go through, truckload, rail, over the ocean, some minimal air shipments as well. A lot of their products are highly susceptible to physical damage, particularly around loading and unloading of product. A lot of their products are highly susceptible to temperature, humidity. That impacts a lot of the electronics that are being shipped as a lot of those products. And then even just something as simple as paint chips or scratches on parts is a big issue. So they have a lack of visibility as to the location or condition of these types of shipments. And then of course, the complex root cause analysis. So when issues do occur, they have to spend an immense amount of time trying to diagnose those issues. We've found instances using our solution where we can identify and automate, a big portion of the work that they do. So for example, just recently, we were able to identify proactively, that a couple of their parts that were being shipped over the rail from Pennsylvania down to Texas had experienced temperature excursions real time, but it was just a fraction of the parts that were all on the same rail. And without having to have them reach out and figure out what was wrong, we were just able to go into our platform and see that the reason for those temperature excursions was directly tied to a light sensor value that had gotten triggered. That light sensor value told us that the strength of that lumen value was coming from the sun. Therefore, we were able to conclude and automate that whole root cause analysis process that their product had gotten uncovered and was in direct sunlight. So that way they were able to radio into the next stop and have somebody cover up the product and make sure that it's functioning properly. So automation is really the name of the game here. We're also working with, for example, another global shipper of perishables. They do a lot of, on the inbound side, they do a lot of importing from Europe and Asia, from Asia and South America. of the perishable products. Obviously, all of these products, when they get out of spec with temperature or humidity, that impacts their shelf life. And some of the types of things that we've been able to uncover for them include, we found that they're shipping from many numerous sources or locations in both Asia and South America. We found that there was a pattern of excursions coming from the same location. So instead of, they shipped from 14 different places, it all was coming, the majority of those excursions were coming from the same location. And when we looked even deeper, we were able to see that it was actually coming from the same exact person. So with these products, these are highly temperature sensitive, and you have to follow very stringent packaging standard operating procedures. And what we were able to deduce was that same person from that one location was not properly following those standard operating procedures. So we were able to quickly diagnose and identify where the problem was. That's a big insight for them. Another one that we were able to identify, of course, was that the 3PLs that they're working with at all of these different countries and locations were actually shipping products much earlier than they expected. And it was just sitting in a warehouse for about 4 to 5 days in the US. And obviously that was just dead time. That was product dead time. And that really had a material impact on the product shelf life. So that's the kinds of insights that we can uncover, and we have uncovered through some specific tangible examples. So what our company actually envisions, right, is right now we've created a classification system that can properly contextualize supply chain data, and that enables us to more accurately predict when, where, and under which conditions do these adverse events occur in the supply chain. And so effectively, in the future, we intend to incorporate an actual insurance product, a cargo insurance product that we will offer right at the point of purchase. And that will enable customers to purchase that product without having to go through the laborious process that they have to go through today in order to obtain cargo insurance. Would love to entertain any questions.
And I'd like to thank all of my 3 speakers as we get ready to move to the panel session. So thank you for your presentations, and we're gonna. And as we get ready to start the panel session, I thought I'd kind of kick off, with a question for everybody. How would you describe your company's technology as unique or niche compared to maybe your competitors? And maybe if you can kind of give a 30-second to maybe a minute pitch. We'll start with you, John.
Yeah, thanks. I'm using my phone. I think what we're doing is absolutely taking natural language bot that makes it very easy for people to use. In addition, with our relationship with Microsoft, we're now offering all of our software solutions through Microsoft Teams, which is really allowing us to be very unique and distinct in terms of what we're doing. So supply chain purveyors can get in and are comfortable with Microsoft Teams and use that format with our software, along with just a very simple natural language bot that allows you to access your data. And while you're grinding that data down to very granular levels and looking for those insights, multiple examples where we are putting absolutely incremental sales, finding lost sales, and we're also taking out significant cost of, making product that goes shipped, unsold, spoiled, and undelivered. Very unique and very transactional. And that's what we're really, really unique about. That's what we're really good about. And, I actually, personally just love doing that all day long. It's very rewarding after having spent a long career in the supply chain. Thanks.
Why don't we just go in order here, Sunny? Can you?
Yeah, I would say that none of the technology that we have is particularly unique. Many other companies employ a lot of the things that we're doing. But I think our philosophy on what we're trying to do and how we do it is really what drives our differentiation from everybody else that's out there. We see all sorts of different companies, automotive companies, aerospace companies, CPG companies, doing all sorts of really cool work, new tech companies trying to deliver really great results for manufacturing. And yet everybody's building all of this innovation on castles of sand. So Our goal is to create a new platform, a new foundation, so that all these new cool things can have something solid to rest on.
Any other?
Yeah, so for us, in large part, it's also a philosophical difference for us. So a lot of our competitors, everybody in the visibility tech provider space knows that the holy grail is in prediction. So everybody's racing to get to prediction, but we know that nobody's really gotten there yet. And we know that from year-over-year cargo claims and product losses. So nobody's able to accurately predict when and where these adverse events are going to occur today. The approach that most in the market are taking is essentially through an aggregation of raw data. They're just trying to aggregate more and more data sources and essentially let critical mass of data drive prediction. We don't believe that that is enough. We think you have to actually properly classify and contextualize that data and let that be the jumping off point into getting into actual prediction. And we do this through our classification system.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to remind the audience to keep putting in some questions if you have any. We have a question here for John on Algo. Can you give us a real world example of how the natural language processing has helped with the operations, such as managing the stocks, et cetera? And what's the biggest change do you see after the latest AI technology is implemented in your product or service?
Yeah, so let me take the first part of that question. You know, natural language ability gives people who are managing, as an example, Walmart stores, the opportunity to just go in a particular part of the day and just simply ask questions. Hey, where are my top out of stocks on what SKUs and what stores? And then immediately type natural language and where's my inventory on this? Is it in transit? Is it on its way? What do I have sitting back in warehouse in the distribution center ready to go? That right there is a 1-minute example of how we're just moving fast and quick to ascertain real life examples of how to improve the supply chain. You're not running reports, you're not making phone calls, you're not running through spreadsheets, trying to decipher and filter getting those answers. So those are very, very good ways to look at it. We had another example with a large customer who had great sales on a particular SKU on their product. And all of a sudden we noticed through our anomaly detection by asking questions where sales dropped off, you know, have there been any issues? The reality was product was in a retail store, had sold very well in the previous weeks, several SKUs every day, and all of a sudden dried up. With our natural language tool, we found that very quickly through Microsoft Teams. We're able to bang an email out to the store manager as well as the merchandisers, only to find that the product was actually in the store, the physical counts were right, but the product was located on a shelf too high. This is a home improvement store that couldn't be brought down to where consumers could go grab it. So those are very simple and tactical responses to how just having this natural language workplace assistant allows you to fly through reams and reams of information to get to a particular SKU, to a particular store, to a particular merchandiser supplying that store. Can you give me the second part of that question, and I'll respond to that?
Just 1 second here. And what's the biggest change do you see after the latest AI technology is implemented in your product or service?
Yeah, that the actionable insights are coming out and people are being told that the information is being put in front of you of what to do. And we're moving now where those actionable insights not only are identifying people what to do, but we'll start pushing through workflow automation where, hey, we didn't ship enough to a particular store. That insight's coming out, but now we're going to go through with workflow automation and actually fire those orders in certain parameters where our clients will allow that to happen. So you're going from not knowing there's an issue to now you know there's an issue to what action should be taken to having the action being taken automatically. It's dramatically moving and improving the supply chain. And I think that's where we'll go, right? AI and machine learning will identify those insights and in certain examples, allow those actions to be taken. Or if the actions cannot be taken, we'll simulate multiple alternatives of actions that could be taken so that you can model positive results against KPI. It's very exciting right now to be in that environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Here's just a general question for everyone, kind of switching the topic towards workforce. You know, there's maybe a difficulty in finding talented workers for the supply chain automation industry. and the implementation of these new technologies maybe require new skill or knowledge. So I just thought maybe you could discuss what your thoughts might be with that, and if your technology addresses any of that. Why don't we start reverse and go back to Ilya?
Yeah, I mean, so we're fortunate enough to where we're still a relatively small and nimble team. We're a core team of about 5. We've got an extended team of about 12, and even just getting it from my co-founder and I, and finding the first set of machine learning engineers and data scientists that were qualified has definitely been a challenge, as it is a challenge, I think, for most startups, particularly in the Midwest. We're actually building out our team considerably in Q1 of 2021. So I think I'll probably have more credible and more accurate representation as to what the true pulse of the market is, probably in 3 to 4 months down the road. But I think that's a great point that needs to be addressed. Kevin.
And Ilya, if you can add on to that with the companies, your customers, does your technology, address any of the critical needs of the actual supply chain workforce, like from the actual distribution companies, for example, or things like that? Or are they interfacing with your technology directly?
They are. So I think in large part it's enabling our customers to repurpose a lot of the low level, low value add, highly time consuming tasks that traditionally manual labor is required to do. Repurpose that and act as more of an augmentation of our technology. So I think that's one of the key benefits that we've been able to uncover, even just in the short, 3-4 months since we've launched, is they've been able to take a number of their workers and staff and repurpose them to more higher value add activity.
Okay, Sunny, would you like to give an answer?
Yeah, I think that having better tools and better software motivates people that otherwise may not have as much of an interest in moving into an industrial role to participate in it. There's a bit of a cultural jam that exists when you are used to using digital tools for everything and you move into an industry where everything's still on paper and everything's still really archaic. So I think in general, better designs and better intuitive workflows certainly help people feel like they can focus on the actual work instead of feeling like this cultural jarring sensation of joining a different industry. So it removes a bit of a barrier of entry for people. And here in the United States, at least, a larger and larger portion of shop floor employees, trucking employees, and things like that are college educated. They have more advanced knowledge. They're more than just kind of trade educated. So I think many companies are starting, like ourselves, are starting to give more credit to these people to be able to handle some more complex workflows. And I think taking a bet on the quality of people is always a good thing. Internally, I think for us, the challenge in hiring people really just comes in the term of numbers. It is hard to hire people as a startup, like Ilya said, especially in the Midwest. But for us, to hire 30 people, we interviewed over 1,000 and only made 20 offers. So I think the commitment to really putting the numbers in and putting the time in is how we've gotten a really fantastic team. But yeah, it certainly is a challenge. But we've been more than surprised and incredibly grateful for all the people that are incredibly interested in helping this very core industry of manufacturing and supply chain. So in that regard, I think we're very lucky. So.
And John?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is this revolution today where most of the people in supply chain are very much aware that big data analytics is going to play a big role. And you're seeing a lot of people, such as myself, making a career leap to move into that field because I think that's where it's going. We've got a very good, steady workforce that we're blessed to have based in Detroit, people in Minneapolis. We've started going overseas as well, and we're really bringing some good talent. What I would say is what's unique about us and very important is it's the combination of both business people who have run supply chains matched up with the engineering team that makes it happen, right? And that's a really good combination we have at Algo, right? So we, kind of play the yin yang all the time. The engineers and developers want to do all sorts of AI cool stuff. We're the business people who are always saying that's all really cool and great, but does it make a difference tomorrow? Are we improving our customers' performance tomorrow? So we really come at that from a tangible standpoint. But we find many talented people out there all across the globe in terms of what we're doing. We really look for people who have that unique DNA, who want to find performance improvements, whether that's on the engineering side or the business side. And if you can get that and match that up with a client out there who really believes, hey, this world of the supply chain revolution is coming, and big data is going to be a key capability and competency that every organization has to have. We're seeing very talented people now start to, do a paradigm shift and think about, I have to have this capability and understanding of not only just how to run a supply chain, making goods, shipping goods, and all that, but I need to understand how to use the data to help drive that to be more efficient. And that's an exciting part of this revolution the supply chain's happening. And I could clearly hear that from Ilya and Sunny in their discussions today as well.
With the COVID-19 pandemic slowdown, the supply chain automation industry has been, I think, pretty successful and seen a lot of growth. Do you guys see any policy changes within international trade or within industry policy as a whole with the new Biden administration coming in, for better or for worse? Or how do you see things moving forward here? We'll go back to Ilya, if that's not too difficult of a question.
That's a pretty bad question, I'll be honest.
This is high level.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can say, maybe not so much focusing on the policy side, but more so on the COVID side. It's definitely, I think, reinforced the need to enhance supply chain technologies and visibilities, right, in the market. Particularly right now, I mean, there's a lot of focus, of course, on vaccine distribution strategy and network strategy, and how are we going to get this product out to the masses, and keep the product integrity and product quality in sync, right? And to all these people, just not even in the U.S., but in remote parts of the world. And that's a big challenge. That's a big undertaking. Several of our customers who are involved on the healthcare side are focusing on that problem, and we're flattered to be a small part of that solution. But on the policy side, I'll say we're probably a bit too early to, at least from our standpoint, we're a bit too early to really speculate how that's going to drive a major difference.
Sure. Sunny, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I think that I would hope that we don't continue along historical lines of treating international commerce and trade as a zero-sum game. I think that there's a lot that can be accomplished just by looking at the fact that, at the very least, demand is very much intertwined across the entire world now. So I would say that my primary goal, if I had any influence whatsoever, and I don't claim that I do, would be to encourage people to look at how things are made as something that is foundational instead of something that comes after the fact. So I hope that if there is a benefit from COVID, it's shown some of the weaknesses of placing really large orders and waiting 6 months for things to get here, and what that can actually entail in terms of the lack of nimbleness and versatility, and really see it as a logistics problem and not a competitive problem. So.
And John?
Yeah, I think my final comments would be this, right? Before COVID even happened, this question of, what do we make? How do we make it better? Where do we ship it? Who buys it? Has all existed. COVID has changed everything, right? And you can't answer those questions easily today in many, many consumer products or, equipment products as well. So my view is there's so much data out there, thank God. It's now available in the cloud and all that, to the earlier points made. Years ago, it wasn't there. People weren't comfortable with it. With this data being there and the hardships the world is in, it's a responsibility of us as professionals to think about, how do we get items from point A to point B? What is the item that we make at point A to ship to point B? And I think all this information that we're getting is going to help us do that. At the end of the day, my opening comments were all about there's still tremendous amount of waste in the supply chain, right? Maybe we don't want to admit that, but it's true. And in an environment that we're in now where, the world needs to get healthy and we need to get back to a better place, taking some of the stress out of that by getting, simple consumer goods and foods and apparel and things, real things that people need, is really important. So why shouldn't we do it with systems that say, hey, don't make it and ship it to the wrong place where it doesn't get consumed or used. Let's make sure everything gets used and consumed in the right place. Let's make sure things are efficient. And at the end of the day, I think globally, as the world opens back up again, this will serve us well. That will have much more robust and much more efficient supply chain.
Thank you. I'd like to respect everyone's time here, so I want to give everyone a last chance to give like a maybe quick 30-second final comment, and that'll wrap it up. So we'll just go back with you, Ilya, and go around again. Just any final comment?
Kevin, we really appreciate obviously the opportunity to present here to your audience. We're a young company, but we're already doing business in about 9 countries, and we plan to expand rapidly. Where most of our work has been with international companies across a number of different verticals, and we hope to have the opportunity to speak with some of your audience members that may see value in what we presented here today. But thank you for the time.
And Sunny?
Also very grateful for the opportunity to talk to this audience. I think for me, a lot of what inspires the work that we're doing right now is seeing the efficiencies that already exist in Japan from the time that I worked there. I think that there is a pretty in-depth understanding of what it means to be a craftsman and what it means to do work at a high quality and a high level. I do recognize that there are technological and automation gaps culturally that need to be crossed before some of these things might be fully and widely acceptable, but we're hopeful and optimistic that that's coming soon, and that cultural change is already in the middle of happening. So if there's anybody that has any questions or wants to talk thoughtfully about how cultures might be different but technology might be the same, I'm more than willing to spend time talking to anybody. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. And John?
Yeah, thank you very much. I really enjoyed the session today. Having spent time working for Sony and traveled to Japan, I was very happy to join this meeting today. We believe that we can certainly help companies become more efficient through supply chain opportunities, as we've discussed today. We certainly know there's challenges in Japan with the aging of the economy and the numbers in the workforce, and we think that Algomus could really come in and drive that. We're on only a country of about 100 employees, a company of about 100 employees today, but we're looking to expand globally. Finally, I spent years in the supply chain and always love to talk to people who have business questions on anything supply chain related. So I would hope you feel very comfortable and should feel comfortable reaching out to me at any point in time to talk about Algo, talk about supply chain, and anything we could do. And that would be great. And thank you again for participating. And Ilya and Sunny, it was very nice talking with you gentlemen both today as well. Thanks.
You as well, John. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to thank our speakers once again for taking the time to join our Jconnect webinar and for your excellent presentations and comments during the panel session. Likewise, I'd like to thank our attendees for joining our webinar today, and as well as our previous sessions throughout the year. This is our final Jconnect webinar of 2020, so we look forward to starting a new year with new industry topics, so stay tuned for announcements on our Jconnect landing page. I know this has been a very challenging year for everyone, so I'd like to sincerely wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season, and best of luck in 2021. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jetro. Thanks, guys.